Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today I'm going to be going through the level 2 wizard spells, giving them a rating, just like in my previous two videos where I've covered cantrips and level 1 spells. Just like before, I'm going to be going through this alphabetically and then give them a rating out of 10. At the end of the video I'm going to be going through which spells I think are must-takes, which spells you should completely avoid, and I'll say just before we start that I'm a bit disappointed in quite a few of these level 2 spells. There's a high proportion of them which I don't find as useful compared to level 1, which kind of makes the choice a bit easier, but also makes it a little bit more boring, because for me, my gameplay is slightly less varied. For the first spell, I've got Blindness, level 2 Necromancy spell, which can magically blind an enemy creature, range of 60 feet, and the creature gets to make a Constitution saving throw. If it hits, makes the target blind for 10 rounds. It doesn't say that we need concentration, which is nice. Let's see if this works. And it looks like it didn't. So this is one of the downsides, the saving throw. As in my previous videos, spells with saving throws I don't rank as highly because at the moment the creatures are more likely to pass their saving throws. One good thing about this is that you can cast it at range and you can target a specific creature. However, when I compare it to Colour Spray, just like this wizard's also got, it's not so good in my opinion because of the saving throw. Colour Spray, automatic blindness. Obviously the downside to that is you have to be close. Overall I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 because for many situations blindness will probably be better, but there is also the chance you're going to waste your level 2 spell slot. For the second spell I've got Blur here, level 2 illusion spell, which requires concentration, but then every single attack against you has disadvantage. This is quite an obvious buff. It's quite good on a wizard because it can help stop attacks getting to you. If I cast it, there we go. I quite like this visual effect actually. But it does require concentration, so there is a chance that as soon as you're hit you drop this. Obviously it's not guaranteed. You might pass your constitution saving throw to not drop concentration, but it just gives disadvantage on attacks, and depending on the situation, that might not make much of a difference. It might make a massive difference. It's not so bad. I do sometimes take this. I give this a 6 out of 10. It's got its uses, but there's going to be another spell later on, Mirror Image, which essentially this is going to get compared to. Darkness is next. Level 2 Evocation spell. Create a cloud of magical darkness to heavily obscure and blind creatures within. Creatures cannot make ranged attacks into or out of the darkness. Concentration is required. Range of 60 feet. Fills up an area with darkness. Let's see it happen. There we are. All blinded. But when you think about it, this has essentially the same effects as Fog Cloud. But overall, I'm just going to give it a 2 out of 10. It requires concentration, just like Fog Cloud. And if I'm going to use a level 1 spell slot or a level 2 spell slot for the same thing, I'm going to want to use a level 1. The only reason you might take this is if you're using all your level 1 spell slots for other spells and you haven't got another great spell to use yet. But yeah, honestly, take Fog Cloud instead of Darkness. There's not really much point in it. For the fourth spell in the list, it is Dark Vision. Grant a creature the ability to see in the dark out to a range of 60 feet. This will last until the next long rest and doesn't require concentration. So it seems quite decent. But at the end of the day, quite a lot of the playable races do get Dark Vision. And you can try and create light using some of the light cantrips, though they're not working properly always at the moment. So this really kind of depends, and I'm not sure that using a level 2 spell slot is worth giving one creature Dark Vision for the day, considering you only get 2 level 2 spell slots at level 3 and 3 at level 4. Overall, it's a 4 out of 10 for me. It really depends on what races in your party. If the characters in your party are all races that have Dark Vision, then this is a 0 out of 10. You just don't need it. If everyone in your party doesn't have Dark Vision, the humans and halflings, or Githyanki, then maybe this is more like an 8 or 9 out of 10 to give it to one creature in your party at least, so you can look around dungeons and underground places. Detect Thoughts is next. This is the sort of spell I was talking about earlier. Level 2 spells, half of them just really disappoint me. This obviously isn't a combat spell. I'm in combat. I'm so unimpressed with the spell. I'm not even going to show it to you out of combat because it could waste minutes or hours trying to find a use for this. So focus your mind to read the thoughts of certain creatures while talking to them. This doesn't happen to many creatures, and you've got to cast it ahead of time. Well, cast it obviously isn't going to do anything. Right, and it only lasts for 10 turns. So you need to know when you're going to speak to a creature where you can use this, and you've got to not have used up your level 2 spell slot before this has happened. So for me, this is just a 2 out of 10. If you know when you're about, if there's a time you can use it because you've researched it ahead of time, then yeah, it's useful. Otherwise, it's just completely wasted. Hold Person is next. Level 2 enchantment spell. Inflicts Hold Person. Paralyze a humanoid creature, making it unable to move or act. If this spell hits, it's amazing, because the creature that you target is taken out of the combat while it's on them. The creature cannot do anything. However, at the end of each of its turns, the creature can try to free itself. Certain downsides: it's a wisdom saving throw and concentration is required. So if they pass the wisdom saving throw, it's pointless. Also, only affects humanoids. So you cannot affect anything that isn't a humanoid. Thankfully, at the moment, in early access, quite a lot of enemies are humanoids, so it's got some use. I would love this to be more useful. Not useful. I would love this to be more effective. The wisdom saving throw, currently, it's okay, 60%, 65%, but you've got a 1 in 3 chance just to waste your level 2 spell slot. Also, the downside is another downside is its concentration. So there's always a chance that your spell is going to end before the 10 seconds, before the 10 turns are up. However, if something is held, all melee attacks against them will have advantage, maybe even critical hits. Let's try and show you that. So I'm going to give Hold Person a 6 out of 10, because if it works, it's amazing, but it has some downsides of having a saving throw and requiring concentration. Invisibility is next. Level 2 illusion spell. Inflict invisible. Touch a creature to turn it invisible. Concentration required. This can be really good. So in combat, for example, I can turn my wizard invisible. They can't be seen or targeted now. So it can be used as a defensive spell for your wizard in particular. You can cast it on other people, but if your wizard loses concentration, the invisibility will come down. Slight downside is you'll only stay invisible until you attack or cast a spell. So in terms of using it in combat for your wizard, it's only good for getting out of combat, really. Getting away, getting to safety. And if you cast it on another person, they're going to get advantage on 1 attack only before they become visible. But its real utility comes out of combat, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, here I'm going to show you the utility of invisibility outside combat. So I've got this druid here called Nettie, and looking at the vision cones, you can just about see that I'm out of the vision. I try to open this wicker chest. She's not happy. Hands off, right? It's red. I know ahead of time that I shouldn't really be opening this. Right, cast invisibility. Boom. And now I can open it. I've got almost free reign of this whole room now. I'll just take in whatever I want. Let's have a look in the Druid Notebook. Let's see if there's anything interesting in here. Alright, okay, fine, let's read that. Let's go over here. Ooh. Perception check failed, never mind. Let's have a look in this wooden chest. Thank you for 3 healing potions. Right, let's keep looking around. So, I think you get the point here. With invisibility, you can just take stuff. There is some sort of limit to it if we get too close. Alright, I can be seen. And now I'm shouting, thief, thief. Running away, might be in trouble, who knows. Right. Let's just see about pickpocketing. Now, obviously, my wizard is not very good at it, but whatever. Oh, I can't even. There we are. Try and pickpocket. Got some stuff. Maybe I want to steal this wyvern. 9, right? Not bad. Okay. So while invisible, I can always be sneaking. Target is still the same. Let's try and steal it. Success. Let's take this. Success. I'm going to keep going until I fail. Even while invisible, they still know that you're there. So there are some limitations to invisibility and thieving, but it makes it much easier. I'm going to give invisibility 2 ratings for in combat and out of combat. So for in combat, maybe a 4 out of 10. It's okay to set up a combat, initiate combat, and for your wizard in particular, very defensive. But it's not going to be encounter changing, really. Outside of combat, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. You can scout around ahead of time. You can steal things without being caught within certain limitations. Melf's Acid Arrow is next, although maybe this should be Felf's Acid Arrow for this character. So 44 acid damage if it hits and they fail a Constitution saving throw, and then on the end of their next turn they take another 2d4 acid damage. Downside to this is it requires an attack save, an attack roll, and a failed saving throw. This is 2 times that this spell cannot do its full potential, do its full damage. One good thing about it though, which isn't in the spell description, is wherever you cast it, will create a pool of acid, which is what this little circle is for. So I should pick someone to hit. I'm currently invisible, got high ground, so it should be quite likely. Let's stick it here. Alright, that was good. That was, I'm going to see the damage on that. That was some of the highest damage you can probably do by the look of it. 15 acid damage. So at 4d4, I rolled 15, which is not very likely. So that was good. Against a single target, it can be okay. And does this creature now have acid? Ah, they're just outside the range. But it's left some acid on the floor. So any creatures inside that pool of acid, it's -2 from the AC, which is quite decent, a good debuff. Overall though, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Because its damage is actually quite low, especially if they pass a saving throw, which is going to be doing 2d4 damage. I may as well just be using a cantrip at that point. The only reason I've given it a 5 is because of the secondary effect of it leaving acid on the floor to debuff the enemies. So if you've got a lot of creatures grouped together, this is okay, because then you can create a debuff on a lot of enemies. Otherwise, you just got one creature by itself. It's not so great. I'd rather be using some other damaging spells, such as Scorching Ray, which we'll get to later. So far, most of the level 2 spells have been a little bit disappointing. But from here on out, most of the spells have some sort of decent use. They're starting to get a little bit better. First of the more useful spells, Mirror Image, as I said earlier, I'm going to kind of compare this to Blur because they both fill a defensive role for the wizard. What this one does, creates 3 illusory duplicates of yourself that distracts attackers. Each duplicate increases your armor class by 3. So currently, I've got this person out front. Wrong one, here we are. The armor class is 15. I'm going to cast this. I've also put them at the front by themselves. Got the other 3 wizards at the back, just to try and showcase this spell a bit more. There it is. Attracted attention. Now, as soon as I can, I'll show you the armor class. His armor class 24 now. That's insane. This is completely different to how it works in 5e. I'm not going to go over how it works in 5e. If you want to, you have to go and read the spell. But his armor class is 24 while each duplicate remains. Another bonus about this spell, it doesn't require concentration. So while it's there, I can, if I really wanted to, cast Mirror Image with Blur. So they've got disadvantage against an armor class of 24. It's a bit over the top. It uses 2 level 2 spell slots. Probably never going to do that. Just like Blur though, this only lasts for 10 rounds, so it's a minute, 60 seconds. This is only going to be useful for 1 combat. So I'm going to keep going and just show you a few hits against this wizard, and I'll keep this up so we can keep track, right? So, in that one round, 2 attacks came towards the wizard. Both of them using acids. Alright, they missed because my armor class is 24 for the actual attack. But I think because the acid was going to damage me, I lost one of my mirror images, and it's basically the same thing happened again. Even so, I've still got an armor class of 18, and I can withstand one more attack. You've got to bear in mind, this is a 4-on-1 fight. Had my other party members been here, not every attack would have come my way. Alright, overall, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I would normally take this spell. The only downside to it, really, is that you can lose the extra armor class, and every time you get hit, your armor class goes down by another 3. So the armor class of 24 is only there while you've still got all 3 duplicates. So the defensiveness of it gets worse and worse over time. Misty Step is next. Level 2 conjuration spell. Surrounded by a black mist, you teleport to an unoccupied space you can see. Range 60 feet. I think this is a really good spell. First of all, quite rare for most spells in the wizard spell list, this uses a bonus action. And currently in Baldur's Gate 3, you can cast a spell with your bonus action and action. So range of 60 feet. This is really good for just various reasons. You can get out of trouble, into trouble, or just kind of rearranging yourself so you've got a better line of sight. You can teleport up to give yourself advantage on attacks. Teleport yourself just away. I mean, over here, right, I can teleport over to here. Which by itself isn't necessarily like, well, what'd you do that for? But, you know, I've split up my party, so AoEs don't affect me so much. I've still got an advantage of being up high. And there are so many different uses for this spell. You can use it for exploration. There are some chests and things that you can't really get to unless you've got someone who can jump very far, or Misty Step. So overall, this is going to give us a 9 out of 10. It would be nice if the range was even further, then maybe I'm just being a bit greedy there. And it'd be nice if there's maybe some other effect. I don't know, give you resistance to damage, or advantage on attack, or small amount of damage when you land. But again, maybe that's just too powerful for level 2. Overall, very happy with the spell. I always try to get it for my wizard. Ray of Enfeeblement is next. So you shoot a ray at the target, and they get to make a Constitution saving throw. And if they fail the Constitution saving throw, they do half damage with weapon attacks using Strength. Concentration is also required. Lots of downsides. So first of all, it looks like we have to roll to hit in the first place. This arrow coming out means it's like a ranged attack roll or ranged spell attack roll. And you do get benefits from being hidden or up high. So if I hide and then choose this, I've got advantage on attack, right? So I can do that. So it's going to hit. And it says they get a Constitution saving throw, though it doesn't really show it here. Anyway, if it hits, the target now has, as you can see here, they are feeble. They have feeble, so they deal half damage with weapon attacks using Strength, which kind of sounds okay, but for a level 2 spell and your concentration, and the fact it's only one creature, and this won't affect any ranged attacks or any spell attacks, it's not really that great. You could easily lose the concentration. And if the enemy doesn't use melee weapons, this is completely pointless. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10, because it looks like there's an attack roll, and it looks like this is a saving throw, and you need concentration. It doesn't affect ranged attacks. So it's just not that great. Kind of sounds okay as a debuff, but the fact it's using a level 2 spell, I would much rather, honestly, use Scorching Ray, which will come up next. Scorching Ray, level 2 evocation spell. This is the spell that deals damage in level 2. So you can fire 3 rays of fire, each ray dealing 2d6 fire damage, and it's a ranged attack, so your percentage chance to hit is better than if it was a saving throw, and also is affected by things like high ground or attacking from hiding, so you have 98% chance to hit. Also, each of the rays individually can crit. So you can do more than the advertised 2d6 per ray. So let's see, it's going to completely I reckon, what, 2 on one, 1 on the other? Do you know what? No. I'm going to try and do 1 on each. I wouldn't normally do this, but just to show how powerful it can be. What happened there? Right, so I hit all 3 of them. Cast Scorching Ray. Attack roll is 17, did 12 damage, so with maximum damage there. This one rolled of 18. Let's see if one of them got a critical hit. Not quite. All of them hit. Did decent damage. And only one of them is now left alive. That isn't always going to happen, but the chances to hit in this particular instance were very high, 98, 97% chance or something. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. For level 2, this quite clearly does the most damage of any one spell. Unless you've got lots of creatures in one area, in which case one of the AoEs coming up soon will be better. But you can also focus this onto one particular creature. There aren't really any downsides to this. The only particular downside is some creatures might be resistant to fire damage. But otherwise, you can do up to 66, or maybe if one of them crits, 8d6 damage on one creature, which is currently about as much as you're ever going to do in one turn. So yeah, Scorching Ray, if your wizard wants to do damage, this is the one to get from level 2. Shatter is next. Level 2 evocation spell, 3d8 thunder damage. The enemies get to make a constitution saving throw. If they pass, they take half as much damage. So first positive thing, this is guaranteed damage. Second positive thing, it's an AoE. Third positive thing, we can cast this at range, which the only other spell that can do that is Acid Splash, whose damage is 1d6. This is 3d8. This is the area of effect spell for level 2. And if you've got an evocation wizard, you can cast it where your allies are, and it doesn't matter. So overall, this is really good. Going to give it a 9 out of 10 because it does guaranteed damage, area of effect. You can see it, and it's got a cool noise when your wizard starts casting it. So the enemies pass their saving throws. That's fine, right? The point of this is to do guaranteed damage to a large number of enemies. If you can kill them. As goblins, if any of them fail the saving throws, they're probably going to die. For the final level 2 spell, we have Web, which brings back bad memories of the original Baldur's Gate, walking into Nashkel as a 14-year-old and not being able to deal with a wizard that can cast Web. Anyway, so it's an AoE, and what it does is enemies that are trapped within it can potentially be enwebbed. So I cast Web. One enemy passed a saving throw, one failed, which is a slight downside as they do get saving throws. And this creature is now enwebbed, which is better than being prone because it can't move, it can't do anything, and it can't get out. It will get a saving throw at the end of its turn, but it will stay where it is, and attacks against it will be very good. The spell, it's kind of fighting with Grease. They have very similar effects, not exactly the same, but quite similar. And so for the most part, I'd probably take Grease over Web. You really don't need both. And since Web takes up a level 2 spell slot, I'm only going to rate this 6 out of 10. If you don't have Grease, then maybe it'd be more like an 8 out of 10. But since we have the choice of having a level 1 spell instead of a level 2, we can save our level 2 spell slots for Shatter or Scorching Ray to just try and obliterate the enemies. Use level 1 spell slot to try and get some battlefield control, controlling the enemies. But overall, this isn't a bad choice. It's just there's a level 1 spell that does almost the same thing, but it's a level 1 spell. Also want to point out, this is also flammable, just like Grease is. So there we have it. Those are ratings for each of the spells. In terms of which spells I would definitely not take, I never take Darkness. Got Fog Cloud for that instead. I never take Dark Vision. I'm always going to have someone on my party who has Dark Vision, or I can use a Light Cantrip for the most part. It's just not worth it for a level 2 spell slot. I never take Detect Thoughts. It's pointless, really. The uses of it are so few and far between, it's not worth learning or remembering. As for the spells that I will always take, hopefully it's been pretty obvious in the way I've been describing these, but Scorching Ray, it's an amazing damage dealing spell. You can focus on one creature, take them down. Shatter, it's the only decent AoE that you can cast at range, and also has guaranteed damage. And I almost always take Misty Step, just for changing the situation of a battle, getting out of danger, getting to a higher place, and for exploration it's also really good. I want to give an honourable mention to Mirror Image. It's a good defensive spell. I do find when I'm playing with just one wizard, I rarely cast it, probably because I'm trying to do more damage with the wizard, but it's definitely a very useful defensive spell. Alright, that's it for this video. If you think I have overrated or underrated a spell, please come and let me know. If you find it useful at all, please leave a like, and all subscriptions are appreciated, and I will see you in the next one. Aren't really any massive downsides. he says, but not being able to cast it.